Let's look at this question. The details of the delivery riders for different restaurants are given. Show them in a table along with a like button. Below the table, display the number of total likes and the details of likes obtained by each rider. So here we have the details of all the riders in an array, and it's an array of JSON with each JSON having two fields, the name of the rider and the name of the store. In our HTML, we have this div with the ID show data, and what we will do is we will construct all our HTML and then we will put it in the inner HTML of this div. So that is our objective. We have also created some CSS to style our table, the columns, the headers and the buttons. So we will be using these CSS classes. So the first thing we will do is we will create a function to show the details of the riders. And what that function will do is it will just return an HTML, a string, and which we will then set in the inner HTML. So let's say we create a function show riders. First thing let's do is we will run a map on these riders and create an array with the rows of the table. So I can say, let's say R map is equal to riders dot map function le, and in the function le what do we do? For each element we will need to create the row of the table. So str is equal to tr, we create the start of the row, str plus equal to, now we will show the columns, and each column let's style it with what's the class name we are given. Column 1 is the class name we are giving to it. So column 1, and what's the text? The first text is le dot rider, and let's close the tweet. Same thing we'll need to do for the store. So let me copy it, and here we are showing le dot store. Next we need to create the button. So let me copy it, and here instead of showing this we will show a button. And what's the text of the button? We will say like, and then we will close the button. So this is our button. Now in the button let's put our class. So class is, what's the button class? Like. So that's what we have defined. So class is equal to like. And the other thing we need to define is our on click. So on click is equal to, and let's say it calls a function like, and what does it take as parameter? The parameter we put here is the name of the rider plus le dot rider. So we have now created our string. Let's close our row slash tr, and we will return our str in the map. So here we have now created all our, using map we should have all our rows. So we should be able to now return our stuff. So let's say we create let html is equal to, and say we want to show a header. So h2 list of riders. Now we need to show this table. Now suppose this table also has a header. So let's construct the header first. So we will need our header. So let's say let header will be a row. So let's create a tr. Now within the tr, how many columns we will need? We will need 3 columns. So let's put it header plus equal to td class is equal to, What's the header class that we have defined? th1. And we can, instead of td, also make it th here, because it's a header class, th1. What's the text we want to show? So the first is name, and we close the th. Next, what do we want to show? Let me copy it. We want to show store. And the third one, we don't want to show anything, where we show the like part. And then we will need to, so this should be header, 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 header plus equal to, we close the. So we have also constructed the header. So now let's construct our HTML. We have created the title. Then we can say HTML plus equal to, we need the table. So table class is equal to, what's the name of the class we have given? Table1. Table1. Now within it, what do we want to then concatenate? Then we will concatenate our header. Then what do we need to concatenate? Then we need to concatenate our rmap dot join with nothing. And then what do we need to concatenate? We will need to concatenate our closure of the table. So here we could have also used single quotes, which is what I did. So now we have constructed our HTML. Let us just return the HTML. So this would have constructed all our HTML. So let's create, say, a function show here. And in this, let's use get the ID. So we can say let element is equal to document dot get element by ID. And what's the ID we want to get? Show data. Before that, let's get our HTML. Let s1, let's say, is equal to show riders. So we get that, and we can say element dot inner HTML is equal to s1. Let's call our function show at the top, so that when the page loads, this function will be called. So remember, we have not defined this function, but if we run it, we should see the table. So let's first check that out. So if I refresh the page, there is some error. Let's inspect. Are we calling the function right? Show. We have called show within the script. The script is also closed. Show riders. Let's just put a console.log s1. And now if we run it, what do we get? We are getting the s1. So what is the error we are doing here? Let's just check our error. Is there an error we are making? So inner HTML. Let's test it again. And we can see that our table has come up. So this is the table we wanted. So we have the name, the store, and the like. Now let's define our function like. So what would our function like do? So let's first define, let's say, array feedback, which is initially empty. And what is the purpose of this array? This array will store all the feedback that we have got. So let's define our function like. What does it get? It gets the name of a rider. Now once it gets the name of the rider, what should we do? We should check whether it's in feedback. So let's first find the rider in the feedback. So let's say let r1 is equal to feedback dot find function le, and what does it do? Return le dot rider is equal to rider. So it will find us the rider. Now we need to see if this rider exists or not. So we can say if r1, if r1, if we have found this rider, then what we can do is we can just do if r1, then r1 dot say likes plus plus. So there would be a likes field in this rider. We would increment it. Else what do we need to do? Else if we have not found the rider, let's find it in the from the riders, and we will need to create a copy of it and put it into feedback. So let's say let rider1 is equal to riders dot find function le return le dot rider is equal to. Now that we have found it, let's create an item is equal to rider is what? Rider1 dot rider. Store will be rider1 dot store, and likes will be 1. So the first time the item gets constructed, that person has gotten a like, the number of likes will be 1. And what we can do is just push it feedback dot push item. We can just push it in, and once we have completed all of this, we can just call our show function. So now what do we need to do? Once we have implemented our function, we need to, let's first check whether this part is working fine. Let's just do a console dot log feedback and check whether this is working fine. And if this is working fine, then what we will do is we will just go and display this table also. So I will, let me just close this console.log of the HTML. And now if I click on like, I get a syntax error on line 58. 58. So the error we are getting here is missing bracket after argument list. So let's check it out. 58. So that's where we are. Let me try and close a bracket. No, all our brackets are closed. So where can this error be? It's happening on the like button. So we forgot to close the function called bracket here. That seems to be the error. Let's test it again. Now if I click on the like button, you can see we have gotten Jack Domino's likes 1. And the likes are increasing, and this seems to be working fine. Now that this is working fine, let's just display it. So let's just create another function like we created show riders. Let's create a function show feedback, which will show this table. So what we can do here is we can say we'll create a let fmap is equal to feedback dot map function le. And what do we need to do? Again, like we just created there, we will just create another map, another table. So let me just copy this code here because it will be very, very similar. So the rest of the code I have copied from there. And what would be the changes? So we will need to show another column here, which is likes. Do we need a button? No, we don't need a button. So I'll remove this. And in the here we will just show likes. Now the table header would have list of or details of likes. Let's call it details of likes. And we show the table and show it. The other thing we can do is if the feedback was empty, so we can say if feedback dot length is equal to 0. If feedback dot length was 0 means we had no feedback, we can just say HTML plus equal to say h3 no feedback has been received. So the table is empty, so we just show that. Else HTML plus equal to, we show this whole thing. So once we have created the show feedback, we can just go back and in our show function, we can just get here let s2 is equal to show feedback, and in our HTML we can just say s1 plus s. Let's test it out. So no feedback has been received, and now if I click on it, our map is not defined. So here we created it as a f map, so there should have been f map here. Let's test it again. So we get Jack Domino's likes 1, likes 2. Bob is now added. Bob's likes are going up. Now if I click on Steve, we can see Steve has also been added here. We can also show the details of the likes. So let's say we also want to show the number of likes here, the total number of likes. So we can say here we can say let's count the number of likes. So we can say let count is equal to feedback dot reduce function accumulated comma current and return accumulated plus current dot likes. So the number of likes, so that's what we are counting, and a comma comma. And now we can show here after this HTML plus equal to say h3 number of likes is what it is count. So we have also totaled up the number of likes and we have displayed it here. Let's go ahead and test it. Number of likes is 1, number of likes is 2, perfect. 6, yes, and this part is working. What does the next part of the exercise say? Show a remove button along with the like details. So in the second table that we showed, we need to show a remove button, and once we click it, all the likes of that rider get removed. So let's go here. So like we had a like button there, we will just put a remove button here. So here we will just say str plus equal to td class is equal to column 1 and what do we need to create within it? We'll need to create a button. So let's create a button and we will just close up the. In the button, what is the text we want to show? Let's call it say remove. Let's give it the class. So the class we want to give it is, the class is remove. Let's give it the class remove and on click is equal to, let's call it say remove. And in the remove, what we will pass? Again, let's pass the name of the rider. So this is Ellie dot rider and remember to close the bracket this time. So we have added the button. Similarly, here in the header, we will need another column. So let's add it and we don't put any text. So the styling is done. Let's test it so far. So the remove button is being seen. So now what do we need to do? We will need to implement our function remove. Function remove, it takes the name of a rider. And what do we need to do in this function after we get remove? We will need to remove that rider's details from the array feedback. So let's first find the rider. Let's find the index of the rider. Let index is equal to feedback dot find index function Ellie return Ellie dot rider is equal to rider. And what we can do here, if index greater than equal to 0, we found the rider, although we don't need to check it here. Why? Because it's all coming from that function, so it should have been there when the button was clicked. Just checked it so that you understand it. So what do we need to do? We will just say feedback dot splice and index comma 1. So once we have spliced it, let's just call our show function. So we will update our display by calling the show function. Let's test it. So I have likes. Now if I remove Jack, so Jack is removed, it's now only McDonald's, Bob McDonald's 1. This is working fine. If I remove George, George is gone. Now can I add Jack back? Yes. So this remove button is working perfectly fine. Let's look at the final part of this exercise. Show two buttons like and dislike. So earlier we were just showing a like button with a rider. Now we want to show like and dislike and also display the details of likes and dislikes for each rider. So typically, like we have seen in Facebook or YouTube, you get both the like and the dislike button and you show the counts of both. That is what we want to do here. So here if we go to our show riders, just like we had created this button for like, let's create another button for dislike. And what is the class? Just to give it, we have a class dislike. So we will call it dislike. Now there are two ways we can do it. We can either pass a parameter in this function to the like one to say that we are doing a dislike, or we can just write a new function. We can do it either ways we want to. Let me just pass a parameter with it. So let me say like is true here and this is like with a false. So false means it's being disliked. Now this will work exactly the same way, and we go to our like. Now, so here what do we get? If the rider has exists, then what do we need to do here? So now the condition could be that with the rider we are getting, let's call this value is like. So if is like, then r1 dot likes plus plus, else r1 dot dislikes plus plus. So for each rider we have likes count and dislikes count. So that is what that does it. Similarly here, instead of creating the item with likes and dislikes, let me create them with likes and dislikes both as 0. So it has both these properties, and now I can do exactly the same thing. If is like, then item dot likes plus plus, so the likes will become 1, else item dot dislikes plus plus, or I can just say item dot likes is equal to 1. I don't need to do plus plus, I know the value. So we could have done this. We could have also created the item in both the cases separately, but this is a slightly easier way for me to do. So we have handled the dislikes. Now what do we need to do? We need to update here. So we will show both our likes and our dislikes. So let me create. So this will be le dot dislikes. Similarly, we will need to create a header here. So let me create a header, say dislikes. Now this should be enough. Let's test it out. So we have the like and the dislike. We did not change the text. So the text here should be dislike. So like button and dislike button. So we're getting both. Let me click on like. So there are 1 likes and 0 dislikes. Perfect. For Bob, let me create a dislike. So we get 0 likes, 1 dislikes. Now for Jack, if I click on dislike, now that goes up. If I click on like, that goes up. For George, if I click on only likes, that goes up. So this is seemingly working fine. Now the problem is we did not count the number of dislikes. So we should show that also. Let's do that. So where were we counting them? So this was our count. Now we can do it here. So let me call this count likes, and let me just create a simple function count dislikes. So this is, so number of likes is count likes plus number of dislikes is count dislikes. So we have shown the count dislikes. Let's test it. Like 1, dislikes 0. So this is fine. Now if this works fine, this works fine. Let me remove, say, Jack. So this is okay. So this is working fine.